Are there any leftover questions in this class about skin so far? We talked about skin. We talked about layers and parts of the skin, of which we're going to talk about more here in a minute. We're actually going to go over two more hair and oil glands today, and maybe nails if we feel up to it. See how far we get. We talked about what skin is good for, protection from UV light. What's the pigment again that does that? Pigment, melanin. Okay, protection from chemicals because of the dry, hard. It doesn't seem hard to you, but it's very dry and hard, and a lot of stuff flakes off. So protection from chemicals from the outside, and then, and we'll talk about nails in a little bit. Then, and they conserve water, and later on, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about body temperature a little bit later too. We talked about color of skin last time. Anything left on that? We got to talk about sweat glands today. I thought it was appropriate. So today, we got to talk about sweat glands. Yeah, but you're in this class and he isn't. And Alex is a little sweaty. And he's pretty dark skinned, actually. There are two kinds of sweat glands in humans. Two kinds. Apron sweat glands are found all over the body. So, when you sweat from your hands, your palms get all sweaty, those are apron sweat glands. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but if your hands get all sweaty, that doesn't smell. Babies sweat, and they don't stink. In fact, when babies sweat, they almost kind of smell good, actually. Okay? So when little kids sweat, they don't stink. Because apron sweat glands are found all over the body. They work from birth. Their primary reason to have them is to cool you off. So, I add that a second. Oh, oops. Spelled it correctly. Their primary purpose is for cooling purposes. And the number of them and the volume that's produced is genetic. Okay, so you know people that sweat a lot, and you know people that don't sweat so much. I don't think I'm a very sweaty person. I'm really not. Okay, but some people, like Alex here, they sweat a lot. Although, as we'll see in a minute, that's not apron sweat glands. Okay, that's the next one. So apron, are there any questions about that? Pretty much all that's coming out of them is water and salts. Okay, so the trickle down your face, you taste your sweat, it tastes a little bit salty, that's what's in there. Okay, so there's no odor, because that's all it is. Water and salts. I have my brother-in-law has almost no sweat glands in his hands. So besides the fact that his palms don't sweat very often, one of the problems he has is that his fingers crack all the time in the winter. Like he gets the webbing of his fingers cracks. He basically has to carry around a bucket of lotion with him and dunk his hands in it every 3 hours in the winter. Because the air is so dry, he doesn't have any sweat glands. Even right now, all the time, you are excreting a little bit of sweat onto the surface of your skin. You're like, really? Even when I'm really cold? Yeah, even when you're really cold, there's a little bit of sweat being excreted onto the surface of your skin. And part of that is help keep your skin moist, along with we'll see. But but he has very few, so he has real problems with cracking his fingers. Anybody else said that? Probably not as bad. His are pretty bad, yeah. Any questions about that? Okay, second kind are apocrine glands. Apocrine sweat glands are found in the armpits and groin, and they're associated with hair follicles. They start working at puberty, or sometimes a little before. So if you want to know when they start working, do walk into a 5th grade classroom at the beginning of May. Mr. Seatsmo, when he was down in the elementary, I'd walk into his classroom and I'd be like, whoa. Because May is when the weather starts getting warm, right? And all those little buggers start sweating. And girls, earlier than boys for puberty, so girls would start having body odor a little bit earlier than if you go into a 6th grade classroom for boys, 6th or 7th grade. That's when they actually work a little bit before puberty. His hair is starting to sprout in the armpits and groin. And why do we have that? Does anybody know the theory? Zach knows the theory. Well, kind of. The reason they smell is bacteria feed on fatty acids and proteins that are being secreted by those glands. So now that's kind of weird. Some people say it's like Zach said, impurities in your body, but it's really not. The only reason, this is a fun thing to think about, because let's think about this for a minute. Proteins and fatty acids are things you eat. So you would use those for energy. But at puberty, for some reason, your body excretes those into your armpits and groin areas, so bacteria feed on them, and then bacteria produce a nice smelly, bacteria produce waste products, and that's what you're smelling, is the waste products of the bacteria. So you're producing these to basically feed bacteria to make you stink. Why? Does anybody know what the hypothetical reason is? Why? Come on. What about Scott said hormones? Sounds a logical guess. To attract a mate. You're like, whoa! No way. No way. That does not attract me. That smell is distinctly unattractive. Right? Body odor smell is distinctly unattractive. Consciously. Consciously. True story. They did an experiment. 100 women in college. They had them smell 100 male shirts. The males put shirts on, wore them for 3 days without a shower. 100 males wore a t-shirt underneath a shirt like this for 3 days without taking a shower. That was the rule. They couldn't use any deodorant or anything. They took a shower the first day. They took a shower the first day and didn't take a shower after that. Okay, now they weren't running around outside doing stupid stuff. They're just going about normal daily activities. They hung all the t-shirts up in a row. They're all white. The women came in and smelled them, and they had to rate them from most attractive to least attractive smell. So think about this if you're doing this for an experiment. You're smelling some guy's sweaty shirt. They had to rate them from most attractive to least attractive. Now, this is really interesting. The ones that were most attractive to them were the people that were the least genetically related to them. So let me repeat that. So, here's the other thing they did. They took, I don't know what the number was, they took a bunch of people and they did the same kind of thing, but then they checked out the chemistry of the smell, because everybody who produces you all have different bacteria living in your armpits producing very slightly different smells. Everybody. And they analyzed the chemical signature for those smells for a person and their spouse and their parents. And here's what they found. You are more likely to marry someone who smells like your parent of the opposite sex, whose chemical sweat gland signature is the same as your parent of the opposite sex. So Will is going to marry a girl who smells like his mother's armpits, whose armpit smell is more like his mother than somebody else. You're like, that's dumb. Really? What attracts you to people? Because they're hot. Maybe. I've had this happen in my life. That I've been attracted to somebody who would not be considered hot, in my view. Which is, I know that sounds really mean. Why does that person attract me? I don't even know them. Theory? She smells like my mother. Not the overall smell, not the perfume and the cologne and all this body wash and all that crap. The deep down underlying smell, and this is true about all cultures, by the way. So even in Thailand, even in Germany, even in Bolivia, which is really interesting. What's your question, Scott? I don't know what you mean. Where do you get the smell from? Okay, hold on. Going down with this. There's got to be a reason for that. It's obviously a theory. So you like the smell of people who are not genetically related to you. You're like, well, that means but yeah, you're not going to, you know what I mean? So, okay, and then you're more likely to marry somebody who smells more like your parent of that sex. So maybe, you know, Kaylee will marry someone who smells like her. How do you know? Okay? Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting to think about. When we talk about smell later on, we'll come back to this a little bit and talk about a few other things about that. But all right, that's sweat glands. Any other questions about sweat glands? Told you this would be interesting stuff. All right, a little bit disgusting, but hair. I think he fits right into that. That's like perfect. Look at that. You're pretty hairy. You've been shaving, haven't you? Okay. As we said before, hair is probably for warmth and protection. Hair is made of keratin. Hair is dead outside the follicle, and I don't know if you need to write all this down again if you already know it. I just wonder what the person looks like underneath there. Looks just like that. There is nobody underneath there. The average growth rate of hair in your head is 1/3 of a millimeter a day. It is possible to slow it down and speed it up a little bit. When my wife was pregnant, she found that her hair grew faster. Probably because of the prenatal vitamins she was taking and the extra food she was eating. Okay, you're not going to build hair very fast if you're not eating very much. Girls' hair grows faster and slower during their menstrual cycle. We really don't know why. Hormones have something to do with the menstrual cycle, which probably has something to do with hair growth. Okay? There are people whose hair grows a little bit faster than others. But the average growth, so after what? You got a millimeter every 3 days, 2 millimeters a week-ish. Okay? So you can imagine somebody with hair down to here, how long they had to grow that stuff. Okay, that's a long time. Some of you might think that your leg hair grows faster than your head hair. Yeah? You don't think that? I told you it did. Did we talk about what? You think that? What happens when you shave your legs, Scott? Does hair grow back faster after you shave it, like on your head? Oh, like if you keep shaving your face, will it start growing for you? So you can have a beard? No. No. That's genetic and determined. We're not sure what determines, like, how fast, when some kids can have a full beard at like 13 years old, and some kids, like me, I was probably 25 before I had to shave more than once a week. It's crazy. Okay? Just didn't have to. And now I shave every day only because I feel like it. You probably wouldn't even notice if I didn't shave every day. So, no, there's no evidence that that'll work. People think their hair grows faster when they shave it because it's the whole idea of perspective, right? If your hair is as long as Katie's, growing a millimeter isn't going to show up. Right? You're not going to be able to tell her hair grew a millimeter, but if you shave your head right down to bald and your hair all grows a millimeter, you're going to see it. So you shave your legs, and you're like, holy crap, my hair's growing back the next day. Of course it is. It's growing about 1/3 of a millimeter a day. Leg hair and head hair grow at about the same rate. But, fortunately, leg hair stops growing. And arm hair stops growing. And we really don't know why. Armpit hair stops growing. Believe it or not. Here's another fun thing that happens as you get older, especially guys, they start producing hair in other places. Like your back, like your nose. For me, it's genetic, like my ears. It's annoying. Okay? Don't really know why. But I still have it on my head, which is nice. Sometimes your follicles stop growing on your head and they do it in a pattern. Maybe back here by your, I'll use Scott as an example of this drawing. Maybe back here in a pattern where it kind of goes back. Sorry, it looks like bunny ears. Okay? Sometimes in a patch on the back of the head, it starts getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, and then winds out from there. It's called male pattern baldness. It's genetic, but we don't know why it happens. There's got to be some questions about hair. Like right here? Well, the theory was always that it was, you got to look at the grandpa on your mom's side, right? Because it's a sex-linked gene, whatever. Okay, don't be mad. My grandpa was cue ball bald on my mom's side. By the time he was 16, he didn't really have that much hair when he was my age. So not a problem. So I have, my grandpa on my dad's side had a lot of hair. My dad still has a lot of hair. I don't know. Women can get pattern baldness too. Okay, but usually for them it's not like in one spot. It usually thins out all over. Okay. Hair color is genetic. Dark hair like Katie's, melanin. Okay, red hair like that girl on the slide before, keratin. Okay, and then different shades of hair color are different. Like Brittany's, is that natural? If you have a color. So she has a little bit of melanin, a little bit of keratin that make it kind of the little bit of melanin so it's not white, and a little bit of keratin to get the little but just in some of the hairs. Like, well, how is it gray? Well, if you really looked at somebody, if I pulled hair out and you looked at it, you would see some of the hairs are white and some of the hairs are dark yet. Make sense? So here, if you're a hairstylist and you're looking through my head as you're cutting my hair, you're going to see I have white hairs mixed in with the dark hairs. And it makes an overall view of gray. And the grayer you get, the more white hairs you have, pretty soon they'll all be white. One thing my grandpa did have, before he went bald, was white hair. He was gray actually all the way at the age of 45, I think my mom said, but I'm more stubbly than him, so it's going to last longer. Curly hair versus straight hair, what is it? I'm just answering all the questions that I know Six Block would ask on Monday that you're not asking. Curly hair follicle, okay? And people with like me that have really straight hair, my hair follicle is round. And people like my wife who has very curly hair, the hair follicle is oval. So when the hair comes out, it can kink over easier. That's it. One thing we don't understand is sometimes people that have had cancer and chemotherapy, after they're done, when their hair all falls out and then it grows back, it comes back either a different texture, a different color, but you're not sure what. Usually a different texture, if it's going to happen. Sometimes a different color. Sometimes a little bit lighter than it was before, sometimes a little bit darker. Babies, blonde hair. When they're born, they have all this really dark hair sometimes that falls out. Okay? You're born with hair, almost all of that hair falls off, and you regrow some. My kids were both white, blonde, curly hair when they were little. And now that they're getting older, they have hair about my color. But that's true of eyes too. All babies are born with blue eyes, and then as they age, melanin production starts in the eyes to get brown. Yeah. Does. Because that's the opposite of what you would think, right? You would think that melanin production fires up in your skin, so you'd think your hair would get darker too, but the opposite actually happens because your hair cells are dead, right? So you're literally bleaching. The ultraviolet light is literally bleaching the melanin in your hair follicles, in your hair, because it's dead. Good question. Yes? That has everything to do with the chlorine reacting with whatever's in their hair. Must have happened to you, huh, Alex? The city pool? Maybe it was after someone urinated in there, too, and so the mixture of urine and yellow and blue makes green, doesn't it? So the pool is blue with the chlorine, and the yellow from the urine mixes and makes green. Perfect.